So I'm going to show you a couple different techniques. We're going to do dipped cookies. So this cookie here is a good example of you've got your green dip and then you've got your buttercream frosting on the outside and then you have the sprinkles. So we're going to show you the different steps for each. So we're going to make the dip on camera. So Lucy is an expert dipper.
Yeah.
We're going to show you what they look like at the dip phase first and then we'll kind of go to making the dip. So
these are the dipped ones.
this is what a mitten would look like after you dip it, and you can see it's kind of all around the side. It's shiny. I can touch it. I don't hurt it or anything. So that's sort of our second step.
This is one of the...
Lucy would like to compare it to
and this
other.
doesn't have the bumps on it.
Yeah, so we're going to make the dip now, and we'll show you how to dip the cookies. I'll turn the camera back around.
To me, because I'm going to be dipping them.
Yep. I'll show you. I'm going to make the dip on camera so that you can see. It's a little bit of kind of touch and go based on what your consistency that you want to be is. Yeah, no, that cat has to go in the basement.
Okay, I can.
Sorry. Sorry. Of course, like the exact time this is happening, Dexter comes down from his room and lets the cat out. We have 3 cats, and one of them is addicted to ramen noodles, popcorn, and we learned Christmas cookies.
Yeah.
So that's why she has to go to the
It's her
basement.
first Christmas, so she likes it. They're free!
Okay.
The chaos has begun.
Okay, can you bring me the measuring cup with the water in it, Liz?
Oh, that's leaking.
That's fine.
This is how much chaos it is. Smudgy has to go in too.
Okay. So, we're going to be using confectioner sugar. If you follow the recipe in the invite, it's pretty exact. I'm not going to be exact today. I'm just going to kind of go by look and feel. Luce, I need your whisk.
Oh, whisk, whisk.
Yeah.
Here's
Dex, you got to throw treats down there. Or you know what? If it's just smudge, leave her out. It's fine. So the magic ingredient in the dip.
You want to come out?
Guys, seriously?
Okay.
Okay, so the magic ingredient in here is meringue powder. So you shake some in. Meringue powder seemed to be kind of hard to find this year.
A lot of people wanted it.
Yeah, any brand is fine. This is Wilton. But basically what's that going to do is firm up your royal icing dip, make it hard and make it shiny.
And that's a little bloopy.
It's a little bloopy.
It's good when it gets the drizzle.
I'll add it some more, but I'm going to show you what we mean by bloopy is, let's see how I can get the camera here. This is too runny. Like it just kind of falls off the whisk. So Lucy's going to keep whisking. I'm going to go actually get some more sugar
Okay, bye.
to put in. We're going to make this red.
It's my show now.
Gel colors for coloring whatever you're doing, whether it's buttercream or this dip. You can use regular food coloring. I just find regular food coloring is watery, so it makes you have to be really kind of sensitive when you're adding it. Gel colors you can add just a little bit and it gives you really vibrant color, and it's not going to mess with the consistency of whatever you're adding it to. So can you stop for a sec, Luce? I'm going to add like just 2 drops.
Whoa,
all right, give it a stir.
cool.
I'm moving the camera down there. So you'll see with very little, like again, I have this giant bottle with literally 2 drops. We've got pretty red dip. I worried about if my camera would fall off into the dip, so thankfully that hasn't happened.
It's a little
yet,
less.
Yeah, let me get some more sugar. So while you're doing this, again, you're just looking for consistency. So you can add more sugar if you aren't paying attention and you add too much water like I did. Also, if it's really thick in the beginning, same thing. Just keep adding little drips of water.
Because what the white one did last time.
Yep. So I'm going to hold this over here. Lucy, you are our great helper. Thanks, Micah. All right, keep going. Let's see. Can you try to drip it again and see what it looks like? All right, that's getting better. So you can see that's kind of like drizzling off.
It's better than nothing.
So it's better. We're going to add a little more.
Use the power.
Okay. Do a little more. If you were to be a little on the waterier side, you're just not going to have as shiny or thick coating on your cookies, which again, based on your preference, could be fine. I also am going to add a squirt of vanilla extract. You don't have to. Royal icing is definitely not something you want to like eat a lot of if you've decorated gingerbread houses or anything like that. It's basically just sugar and water. So it is really sweet.
It smells so good.
Not as tasty as buttercream in my opinion. Oh, we're almost there. Okay, do a little more. And I think I'm going to add some more red color now that we've... All right, hold the camera so they don't... Okay, so it's getting a little more drizzly.
It's
We're
very
almost
thick.
there. We're almost there.
It looks liquidy, but it's thick.
Okay, a little more of
That's
that.
a lot of red. It's gonna be dark.
That's okay.
That's orangey.
Lucy likes the dark colors because then it turns her teeth colors. Okay, that should do it.
The gummies turned my teeth colors
All right.
this morning.
So here we go.
Oh wow, that's red.
Okay, so if you can kind of see when she's dripping it off the beater or the whisk, yeah, it's kind of drippy. I'm gonna leave it like this just for today's demonstration. I think it'll work fine.
It's
Can
good.
you? Yeah, we're gonna just get the stuff off the sides. Okay, so Lucy's gonna demonstrate how to dip
I'm gonna do
cookies.
the mitten.
So tell them about what's important when you're dipping, Luce.
So when you're dipping, you want to hold it onto the sides, like on the sides of whatever you're doing, and then you just want to dip it in for a few minutes. You want to get it everywhere.
Yep.
And if you don't, you just get your finger in it and you just wipe it a little.
Okay, so show them how you dip. So you just touch it to the surface, and then here, you gotta show the camera.
Then it like that.
Okay, so now she's gonna put it on the cooling rack.
Yeah.
Like that. All right, want to do another one?
And do red tree.
Okay, and so if you get any bubbles or imperfections, or you lift your cookie up and it's missing,
like right there, you just
you can just touch it and it'll sort of heal the frosting. So you can,
it's very drippy.
Yeah, it's a little drippy. Okay, put that one down.
Yeah,
they get the idea. So that's dipping your cookies. You can go wash your hands if you want. I recommend leaving them to cure overnight. If you can't, you can add more meringue powder. I don't think it'll really mess with the flavor, but the more meringue powder you add, the harder and shinier your cookie dip will be. But yeah, I recommend leaving them overnight before you go to the next step. So for today, we already have a batch that we left overnight that we will go to the next step with. So Luce, can you take this tray over to the stove? Take the whole thing. Thank you, Cookie Elf. So the one thing I wanted to show you before we go into decorating the dipped cookies is for my gumball machines, I kind of worked, on the stovetop. Working backwards with these, I guess it's just important to look at your cookie and kind of think where you want to be and what layers you need to do everything. So for these, I wanted the little sprinkles to represent the gumballs. So I don't know if you can see, if it's kind of hard to see.
I'm letting my sleeves are rolled up and my rubber bands off my wrist.
Okay, so I have some buttercream in a bag that I'm going to pipe and actually put those little balls on the cookie first before I do any other decorating. Can you put some of the little balls on a plate for me? Yeah, the rainbow ones. All right, so we're going to show you decorating a cookie here. Nope, not quite. Okay, so I have buttercream in a bag. I made this. This is the recipe that you also have. Again, there's meringue powder in here. Yeah. Lucy's showing you the plate of the sprinkles that we put down. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to frost our, I don't know, Gumball Machine dome with buttercream, and then we're going to smush it.
It's glass.
It's glass. Then we're going to smush it into the sprinkles. So we do that.
Can I dip it in the sprinkles?
Hang on one sec. Let me try to show on the camera. Okay, so you can see there's buttercream on that. So now we're going to move it over to the sprinkle plate, and we're going to show you how Lucy is going to smush that into the sprinkles. Oh, smush it really good. And give it a little push. Okay, lift it up. Let's see how we did.
Ooh.
Good, yeah.
Wait, no, there's a little.
That's okay.
Okay.
We get the idea. Okay, so there's our sprinkles on our gumballs kind of on our dome. With this buttercream frosting, you can actually kind of smush it with your finger. It's not sticky, but so you can, if you have any imperfections or it's starting to squish off, or like Lucy was trying to do, get some more on the edge, you can. And so now what I'll do when I decorate the rest of this is I'll frost around it, you know, the top and bottom pieces, but my gumballs are good to go. So that's what I wanted to show there. Okay, Luce, do you want to do some piping and tell them about how the hats and stuff work, or what do you want to pick here?
I want to do hats.
Okay, let me move the red stuff.
Okay. I want to move the pom-pom.
Okay, so now that we've got our dipped cookies here, let's see if this works better. Yep.
We're doing this hat.
Yep, so Lucy's going to show you, we're going to put buttercream on each of the dipped cookies. Yeah, it's like at an angle. And then you can then dip it in whatever sprinkles you want. So you go ahead and squeeze that out. I'll get sprinkles and show them what we're doing here. So I recommend, I'll actually show you over here my sprinkle stash. So I have an exorbitant amount of sprinkles over here. You can kind of just keep them on paper plates or some sort of flat surface where you're able to smush the cookie into the sprinkles. I recommend sanding sugar. This one was from Target, but sanding sugar is like big, kind of really sparkly, shiny crystals. You know, there's 1.5 million different things out there, but what we're going to use today is sanding sugar. I'm going to use green and I'm going to use white.
Just white?
Yep, in here.
Oh.
Or do you want rainbow?
Rainbow.
Okay. We're good. Lucy's favorite sprinkle mix is rainbow, and rainbow is effectively all the bits of all the sprinkles that don't get put away every time that we just kind of keep adding to. Okay, that's probably good, Luce.
Okay.
So we've got some buttercream on there, and again, we're dunking it in the sprinkles, so it doesn't really matter necessarily what it looks like. So you just flip it over, press it in, and then when it comes out, there's our pom-pom. So what's nice about this is the dip doesn't budge, so I can touch it, poke it, you know, if I want to do another layer of buttercream. I'll also note we're using white buttercream so that the colors, I know the lighting's kind of weird, but the colors will pop out differently on white buttercream than it will if we were to do a color. So if we did green buttercream versus blue versus red, you can start to get different effects with your frosting if you're using a different buttercream. You want to do the bottom of the hat now? So for reference, this Gumball Machine has red buttercream around the edges and red sprinkles. So I think it's a little hard to see, but you kind of get the angles. So that's red sprinkles and red buttercream versus something like this where we have white buttercream and white sprinkles.
It's erupting.
It's erupting?
It's coming out the top.
Okay. So here, we'll just squeeze this down. So while Lucy's doing that, there's one more thing I want to show you. So again, our favorite technique is the piping and the sprinkle dips. I am going to show you how to pipe royal icing. So what we used earlier in that dip, you can pipe it. I recommend making your dip a little thicker than you would for your other cookies. So I'm actually going to mix this up and make it thicker while she's doing it. Are you going to make a rainbow brim on that one too?
Yes. Because everything, Ellen makes everything better.
Yep. Okay, so we'll move this over here so we can see it on camera. Okay, can you dunk your cookie in there?
Yeah.
Give it a push. Push it, like just drop the cookie. Kind of push it down. Okay, hold it up to the... Yeah, yep. Yep, so there's our hat cookie with the sprinkles on the top and the bottom. So same thing. I mean, you can certainly eat it now. I just wouldn't package it up or plan on stacking it with a bunch of cookies until it's had a couple hours to set up and harden. So we're going to move this out of the way, Liz.
You're taking the first.
It's okay. Okay, so I have mixed more this dip up, and you can see now we're really like...
Can I just store it?
Drippy and yeah, thicker. And I'm going to show you how we pipe it for the gumball machines. So, this camera on. What I recommend, I know you can't see my face, but that's not important. So when you're filling a piping bag, I think it's easier to put it in a glass or like a plastic cup. That way, especially if you're trying to do it one-handed. No, I was going to show them. So I'll get like a couple spoons of this dip and put it in here. So this is what I'm going to do to fill the fine lines on the gumball machines. You can decorate your cookies like this too. If you don't like the dip method, if you have more intricate designs and you want to do this, you totally can. Just preference. So now I've got some dip in my bag, and when I take it out, I have to snip this little bottom part off, but I don't do that till I have all the dip in there. And I'm going to cut a teeny tiny hole on the bottom.
If it's too big, because then if it's too big, then y'all just have a lot of frosting on a cookie, and it's not gonna be good.
Yeah.
I'll just make like a towel.
Okay, so we're gonna work on this gumball machine, which you guys can
taste good, but it would not look.
You guys can see. So I'm gonna take my piping bag. I'm gonna get this cookie out of the way too, so you guys can see. Okay. It's really hard trying to stare at the screen and this camera thing. Okay, so I'm gonna take this piping bag now and just do like this controlled kind of dip on the top. And then I'm gonna do it kind of outline here. And again, like Lucy was saying, the dip sort of goes everywhere so that you don't have to fill it all in. It'll sort of, gravity will fill it in as you go. But I just trace outlines and then kind of plug it in there.
They're silent.
Yeah, a lot of them are on mute.
No, Mom, the boys are silent.
That's good. I didn't want them up here. Okay, so that's kind of what our gumball machine looks like if I use the dip to fill it in. Let me put this down. Let's see if I can get a different angle so that you can see it a little better. Yeah, so there it is. You get the dips all filled in, and then I'm going to wait until this dries, and then I'll do my piping on top of it. But again, I'll let it set for a couple hours at least. There's Lucy and the dip again. It makes a ton. So this is a whole batch, and you could probably dip, gosh, 40 or 50 cookies in one batch.
50?
Yeah, you can do a lot.
That's a lot.
So those were the main.
Maybe 50 minutes.
Those were the main things that I wanted to show you guys. I know it was a little challenging here on camera. Does anybody have questions or I guess about anything that you saw or want to look at anything again? Nope. Nope, nope. Okay, well that concludes the portion.
Can I have myself a cookie?
Yeah, of the presentation that my elf and I were going to show you guys. So thanks for tuning in.
And the special elf.
I will tune it over. Yeah.
Jean and Lucy, that was awesome. Thank you.
Sure thing. You're welcome. Up next is Lee.
Thanks, guys. Great job.
You.
All right. Hi, guys. Okay, so I am going to be showing you some elements of, well, all of the elements of making rainbow cookies, but with a little movie magic, since some of the requirements of this recipe requires time, lots of time, weight, and pressure. So with a little help of some fast forwarding and cinematography, and I've got Mary here to assist. So she'll be taking over camera and okay, hold on. Hello? Oh, the button is so small. Oh, make yourself bigger. I can't. Let's see. Is that working? We just want to flip the camera. It's so difficult. Can you bring yourself up to there? I don't know if I can bring myself up to there. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, welcome to our kitchen. Come along. I gotta move the cord you plugged it in. Oh, dear, you can unplug it. I think we should be. Okay, we'll do that. All right, so I've prepared all the ingredients for our rainbow cookies, which are essentially almond paste. This is from Wegmans that I purchased. Comes in 8-ounce packages. You need 12 ounces for this, so a box and a half. And I cubed it already. So it is already pre-cubed and ready to go. The other main ingredients of this recipe is butter. Lots of butter. This is 2 cups of butter, essentially 4 sticks. I bring it to room temperature. It's a lot easier to use, and it works better into the recipe. The other key ingredients is 6 eggs. They are separated, so our whites are already in the bowl here, the mixing bowl, and then our yolks are going to be used later in the recipe. We also need about 2 3/4 cups of flour and 1 1/3 cups of sugar. So 1/3 of the cup is going to go into our whites mix, which is essentially going to become a meringue. So I've already so we're going to be so I've already pre-measured my third out as we're going to slowly add that to the whites. So we'll start by doing that. I'm going to put the mixer on. Hopefully it won't get too loud, but we'll just crank it up a little. All right. So I am going to crank it to full speed, and I'm going to talk really loud now. And I'm going to add my third cup of sugar slowly. And this takes a few minutes to get to a nice meringue. You want stiff peaks, so the sugar will help to form those peaks. So I'm just sort of slowly adding it in. And now we're going to let the KitchenAid do the magic. Sorry it's so loud. All right, so as that's working, let's go to the other end. While I have that working, I've got the oven preheating to 350, and I'll show you something else that I do to kind of prepare as we go. For our batter to cook, we use foil-lined sheet pans. These are 9x13s, and I butter the foil. But instead of buttering the inside of the pan, I butter the flat foil. So I've buttered here to make life easier this way. So it's all right. And then I take my buttered foil. And just get that into the corners there. Just makes life a little easier. And those are ready to go when we need them. We're almost done. So we've got meringue. How about that? And we're going to transfer the meringue into another bowl because we need the mixer for the other steps. So this is all going to go into a secondary bowl, container, whatever you got. Meringue is not picky. And then typically I'll throw this in the refrigerator while we are doing the rest of the steps, but we're going to get through the steps pretty quick. So I'm just going to leave it here. Eventually the meringue is going to be incorporated to the rest of it, so I don't need to rinse this out. What I am going to do is switch to a paddle attachment. So we are now going to add this paddle attachment as we use a whisk for the meringue. This is for our next step, which is going to be the almond paste. And then the remaining sugar. So we use that third cup for the meringue. The rest of the sugar goes right into this. And then we're going to basically bring this to like a crumb texture. So this is a lower speed situation, so it's not going to get as loud. And basically we're crumbing the sugar and the almond paste together. And that just takes a couple of minutes to kind of break down a little bit and get us to a consistency where it's just all uniformly crumbly. Maybe I'll crank it a little bit. Oh God, it's going everywhere. Sorry. Don't make a mess of your kitchen. Not good. This is more cleanup for later. So as this crumbs, and it's coming to a nice crumb, Mary, if you want to get a shot of that. We're doing pretty well there. So you're not creaming it, you're crumbing it. I'm crumbing it, Mary. That's right. We're not creaming, we're crumbing. And once we start adding butter, and a whole lot of butter, that is, because butter makes it better. And at this stage, I would say, if you want to get another shot of that, we're in a pretty good crumbly texture. So I'm going to start adding butter in one cube at a time, just letting it incorporate. And it's just sort of going to join the party. Crummy, buttery party. God, this cookie is so delicious. And it's really because of all the butter and the almonds. So a little history about the cookie. The rainbow cookie is an ode to Italy. It's an Italian American cookie. So a whole bunch of Italians immigrated to the States. They felt nostalgia and they missed their homelands. So they made a cookie that traditionally in color is green, white, and red, which are the colors of the Italian flag. And it's an almond-based cookie, which is one of the bigger crops that comes out of Italy. So a lot of cookies in Italy are made with almonds. So it is an almond-based cookie. So it is considered like the Italian flag cookie, but it's also the colors of Christmas. If you do the green, white, and red, it can be any colors that you may want to use. You do not have to use green, white, and red. I've done ombres before, so like different shades of one color. So I've done like a red gradient, I've done pink gradients, I've done blues, I've done greens. I did MediSked colors one year, so if you had MediSked rainbow cookies,
Hanukkah friendly.
also Hanukkah friendly. They are blue and like yellow, like a deep yellow. So you can see here now, Marilyn, a shot of that. So now we've gone from crumb to cream, which is a nice buttery, creamy texture. So the next piece or part to this is that we're going to add the yolks in. So taking our yolks, and we're going to slide those in there. Getting squishy now, very squishy. I'm going to crank it up just a smidge and let it do its thing. Occasionally, I'll kind of stop things and just, kind of paddle it down a little bit just to get the stuff that sort of sticks to the top side. I want to make sure that everything gets incorporated. So once in a while, I'll just give it a little bit of an assist here to get things down and moving. Okay, so there we go. Lock that up. Now, if you do use a KitchenAid stand mixer, pro tip, make sure you lock it because this stuff is very chunky and heavy. And if you don't lock it, this thing will start bouncing up and down. So that's happened to me. That's why I tell you, because it's not a good time when it happens. Yes, locking that is super important for this recipe because it does get pretty thick. It's going to get thicker, my friends, because now we're going to start adding flour, which is why we're going to slow things down nice. Otherwise, we will have an entire mess of the surrounding areas and even your neighbor's house. It'll go everywhere. So I'm just going to add a little bit of flour here. This is going to thicken our dough. How are we doing on time? Let's see. I'm going to go 3. All right, we're moving along. So this is, like I said, about 2 3/4 of a cup of flour. You guys should have the recipe for this. And if you don't for any reason or need a link to it, let me know. I can get that to you. It is actually a really good recipe. I've seen a lot of different recipes for this cookie. This one is my favorite by far. It is the recipe that my aunt, who makes these cookies every year, she gave it to me. It comes from Bon Appetit magazine. But she is like the rainbow cookie goddess, and I trust her with anything rainbow cookie. And so she taught me the ways, and now hopefully you guys will be rainbow cookie experts. Are there any questions while we're kind of working through this process so far? Any of the steps up until this point? Anything? There is a 1.5 teaspoon of salt added to this recipe, so I usually add it during the flour stage here. I just sprinkle it in. I use kosher salt. I like it. It's got a nice texture to it. If you're concerned about iodine, table salt will be for you as well. Like iodine, something you might want. Here we go. Just gonna crank it up a little bit more. And I will scrape the sides just one more time here. We're getting we're popping out. This dough is very substantial. As you can see, this natural color to it is kind of like a buttery, soft yellow color. And this is our neutral color. So if you are doing a green, white, and red, this would be considered your white or your sort of plain neutral color. So just to keep that in mind when we get to the next stages. So I'm going to just give that one more. I almost went without the lock. Okay, one more little mix here. The next part is adding in the meringue, and this is going to kind of loosen things up again. So we've gotten to a point where we're pretty sticky. So I'm just going to feed in. I'm going to stop it or pick it up because we are running out of space here. So I'm going to feed in about a third at a time. So I'm just going to feed in a little bit of the meringue and then bring this down, lock it, and let it spin. And this is going to help kind of loosen up the dough, the batter. It's kind of a cross between a dough and a batter. If I can squeeze more while it's down, I will. Little blocks of it will get in there.
Tell them what you're going to do with this batter once you're done.
What are we going to do with this batter? So what we do with this batter once it's done is, like I said, if you are doing a tricolor with one of the colors being neutral, you're going to divide this into 3 parts. One of those parts will remain this uncolored or untinted color, and the other 2/3 will, again, broken into thirds. 1/3 will be, in our case, we're going to do 1/3 red and 1/3 green. So I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. And let's see. Put the rest of that in there. Okay. So I'm going to, again, wrong way, stop it, and then scrape the sides down because there's a lot of good stuff that's kind of stuck here at the top. Make sure we're...
Is it supposed to be thick?
It is pretty thick in general. Definitely not as thick as it is right after the flour stage, but
it's not the same as a cake batter.
No, certainly not like a cake batter, but yeah, like I said, it's kind of like a flimsy dough or a very, very thick batter. It's kind of in between those 2 things. So give it another whirl. Now, the recipe says to fold in the whites. Now, if you want to get a really good arm workout, go for it. Fold it in by hand. And by folding it in, I mean by gently taking the meringue and sort of bringing it in and incorporating it into the batter. But the mixer is just fine. And I think that it will save your arm a lot of grief. So go for the mixer. Don't tear a rotor cuff. It's not a good time. So,
find a friend with a mixer to make this.
Yeah, use the mixer if you got it. I don't think I've ever done this with like a hand mixer for this stage of it. Certainly making meringue is fine by hand, but this batter is pretty hefty, so you would need a stand mixer. All right, so here we are. And we've got, let's see, a nice thick batter. And what I'll do is I'll kind of tint one color for you just to give you an example of what we do. I typically find that a third of this whole recipe's batter is about 2.5 cups per color. So what I'll do is I'll just take a cup measuring tool just to give us a quick, easier way to get this done. And I'm going to tint it green. So I'm going to put it into a separate bowl. That's one of the cups. Try to get as much of the dough out there as possible.
It really is like a cookie dough.
Yeah. I mean, like if you made like spritz cookies, I think it's kind of similar to that sort of consistency. Pretty gloppy. But delicious. It's all that butter. All right. And then about
Just do what you have.
Okay. I guess I could do
Just do what you have.
a little bit of magic here. All right. So we're just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to take my green. Right there. And I do about, let's see, about 2 like full squirts of this.
To like hold it for a second and then hold it for another second.
Like a squeeze and a squeeze, 2 full squeezes. But again, depending on what you're using, if you are using the gels like Jean had demonstrated, those are definitely going to be a lot more vibrant and saturated than the liquid, which is still liquid food coloring. So, depending on what kind of color saturation you're looking for, it's really up to you. It's really not going to change the flavor of it, and it's not going to change the consistency of the stuff very much, because as you can see, it is pretty thick, and you're not adding a ton of liquid into the situation. But you do want to mix this until it's well incorporated and that you don't have like any globs of the white color kind of poking through. You want to make sure you get it pretty consistently.
Show your next step.
Done. Well, the next step is to put it in the pan. So
You don't need to show that step. Just show them how. Show them the white part going into the pan.
I guess so. All right, so let's do this. All right, so wash the green off.
Sorry, we need to wash our hands.
Yeah, after I make these cookies, I usually have red and green stains from the food coloring, but that's okay. People know you worked hard. That's good. All right, so I'm going to take the pan. We're going to just do the white color. Generally, just to get it. Now, I'm just going to eyeball it because I've done this enough times, but essentially, like I said, about 2 cups, 2.5 cups per color. And what I try to do is I try to distribute it evenly, as evenly as possible through the pan, so that when spreading it, it's a little easier to get around all the parts. This tool is my favorite for making these cookies, and it comes in handy for most of the steps. So
What's it called?
An offset spatula. Very good. Made by Ateco. I don't know, but I know Wilson makes this as well. So what I'm going to try and do is get it into the 4 corners as best as possible. Again, it is a very sticky, thick dough. It will resist.
How thick do you want the batter to be in the pan?
It's a very shallow thing. I mean, it's probably about 1/4 of an inch.
You're only filling it to 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah, it's a very shallow dough. I should use that other. This foil was a little short.
Why don't you leave that? People know how to fill a pan.
Yeah.
Show them the next step. Okay, just leave it alone. Walk away. Walk away. Walk away from the recessed spatula. What's it called? Offset spatula.
I really love this tool. All right. Now I need the offset for the next thing. So I'm just gonna wash it real quick. So, as Mary says, get it spread out into the pan as best as possible. I do all three colors at once, so I get 3 trays filled and spread out evenly.
This is the stage at which the batter tastes good by itself,
Oh boy!
but you don't want to eat too much of it.
No, you're gonna wicked stomach ache from.
But for those of us that, lick the spoon, let's just say.
All right. So the cakes, the 3 colors go into the oven. I usually do 2 off to the sides on the top rack and 1 in the middle of the bottom rack. 350 degrees, regular bake, about 10 minutes. You want it to be set, but you don't want to over dry it. Once those come out of the oven, we are at this stage. Now these are kind of they're a half sheet, so they're a little smaller for demonstration purposes. But essentially, it sort of looks like a mini version of a full sheet. So I've got the 3 colors.
You can see how thin it is.
Yeah, it's a very thin cake. Yeah. So, but once you layer the 3 of them on top, you have a pretty nice substantial cookie. So this is the jamming stage. We're gonna jam. Are we doing this? Good. Okay. So I've gone ahead and sort of prepared the jam. What I do is I use the sweet orange marmalade from Schmucker.
Very Italian.
Not at all. Jesus, Mary. Okay, so I get the Smuckers. It does have little bits of fruit in it. What I typically do is I put it in a pan and I kind of bring it to a little bit of just a simmer, just to loosen it up. And then what I do is, if there's any fruit in your marmalades or jams, you're gonna want to strain them out. I use just a small strainer like this, just to pull out the fruity bits. All I really want is that jelly substance of it. So if you're using a jam that doesn't have big fruity bits, then you're fine. Essentially, I just want this beautiful glue.
It's really runny. Wait, show people how runny it is.
Yeah. So, yeah. And what I'm going to do is sort of bring this, we'll call it our jam jelly glue. And I'm just going to put sort of a nice, healthy portion here in the middle, kind of like up the spine of the cake. Offset spatula. And again, you kind of want to work to your edges. You want to get all the edges of it. You don't want to leave anything bare, because this is essentially going to glue the 3 layers of the colors together. So kind of get everything off to the sides. And okay if it runs over. When we trim our edges, the best part of the cookie is the edge piece, because it has extra jam and extra chocolate, and everybody loves a little extra jam and chocolate. So I just kind of smooth it out just by going, left, right, getting that all set. And we then, remove that. We're then gonna layer on our first piece here. So because these are kind of small, they're easy to pick up and just lay on top of each other. Sometimes if they're too floppy, especially like if they're bigger, what I'll do is kind of bring the foil up with an edge tucked, and I'll just flip a cake over to lay on top of it. But if you have 2 people who can sort of like help you bring it over, this works too.
Or cut them in half and do it this way.
You can cut them in half too. I mean, there's no reason you can't make little mini ones, they're kind of cute. I might do this.
It's like a little cake.
Little baby cake. All right, so then we're gonna do it again with our second.
Faster.
Okay. Not forward. Okay, here we go. All right, so then we are jamming to the edges.
How long would you let your cakes cool before you're doing this?
I would give them about an hour. When you pull them out of the oven, I take them out of the pans pretty quickly. If you have a cooling rack, you can put them on those. Otherwise, I just leave them with their foil edges and just put them on top of the counter. But yeah, about an hour is a good amount of time to cool before the jamming stage. And then you should be in pretty good shape there. All right, so we're gonna take our green layer, put on top.
Now you can see the full 3-layer effect.
All right. So there we go. Now this is where time and pressure and weight comes into play. If under normal circumstances, you would be leaving this for 24 hours in your refrigerator. I kind of seal up the edges, give it a nice tuck around all sides here. And what I would do is place this in the refrigerator between two cutting boards, and then maybe put a heavy pot or cans on top of the pot or whatever you've got. But essentially, you want to be able to kind of sandwich it in between a couple of boards to give it weight. So this is out of the refrigerator. It's been refrigerated for 24 hours. And you will see that this half, it has been already jammed.
And don't worry if the crumbs are sticking to the foil because everything gets covered in chocolate.
Correct. Which is our next stage. And guess what?
Because that would bother me.
Oh, God. I know. Yeah, like little imperfections. This kind of stuff here, it's no big deal. Listen, it's gonna be fine because you're gonna be trimming edges. It's gonna be fine. Offset spatula. I'm gonna use it again. So I'm just gonna give it a quick rinse.
Maybe we should buy a second one.
You think?
I mean, the one utensil does all the work.
All the work. Now, generally, you have like a day in between these two processes, so the spatula is going to be clean.
So we don't need to invest in another one. Okay.
But anyways, if you got me one for the holidays.
I see a possible MediSked branding opportunity.
Offset spatula. So, I mean, if we've got some real weird chunky bits going on at the top, and then this one kind of looks like it's certainly like.
Now, why would
giving
you
a little
remove
depth?
that?
Because I don't want my chocolate layer to be like.
Because like when you
uneven.
frost a cake, it might be funny.
Right. So I don't know where those bits came from, but they're out of here. So yeah. So if you have any like
Carry on.
weird bits. Okay. So now chocolate. I use the Baker's chocolate semi-sweet. You can use whatever you like. The nice part about using a darker chocolate is that the cookie is pretty sweet in general. You've got the jam giving a little bit of a citrus. If you're using the orange marmalade, if you're using a different jam, you'll get other notes. But if you are using a citrus, you get a citrus tone. You got the almonds, and then the darker chocolate will give you a little bit of a bitter contrast. So I prefer a little bit more of a darker. And what I do is I melt the chocolate over a double boiler. So essentially just a pan of water and then a bowl on top, a metal bowl to melt the chocolate. So then I melt that. I'm just going to grab my dish towel, wipe the bottom so I don't drip any water onto my cake. And what I'm going to do here is actually rotate this guy so I can work horizontally here. And what I'm going to do is kind of get all the chocolate to the edge of the bowl. This will make it, again, easier to kind of pour out. And again, I'm going to go right down like the center spine of the cookie. And sort of distribute the chocolate that way. Get as much out of that bowl as possible. All right. And then from there, again, offset spatula. Work as quickly as possible because the cake is cold and the chocolate will start setting pretty quickly. So again, this offset spatula is the tool that I love for this. Sort of getting everything to the 4 corners as fast as possible. And then once it's covered, then I just sort of work, again, sort of left to right and just create these little ridges. It also helps to spread the chocolate out. So I'll kind of run this a couple of times, make sure I fill any holes. And the very edges of this cookie will be trimmed off.
So where you see that things don't quite line up, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Because many of us would be very annoyed by that kind of thing.
Very annoyed, very annoyed. But that's pretty much it. What you're going to do then at that point,
Pick it up and eat it.
no, Mary, can't do that. But just like this, uncovered, because obviously your chocolate is wet and not set, you would put this in the refrigerator. If you have a big enough freezer where you could just pop it in the freezer for 10 minutes, you can do one side with chocolate, 10 minutes later out of the freezer. Here's the tricky part. You need to flip it over at a certain point. So once the chocolate is set, you're going to be flipping it over to do the other side because both sides get chocolate. My tip for that is to put a piece of parchment paper over the chocolate side. Then I take another board over that, and then I gently turn it over to get to the other side to do that. So once you have both sides done with their chocolate, you will have this sheet of cookies. I'll bring this over there too. We have good light. This is a completed cookie set here.
So the edges have been trimmed?
I've already trimmed them. And I'm going to show you how to cut the cookies for serving. So are we on time?
You got to wrap it up.
Okay. So here's another pro tip. I will typically wear an UV glove. This is not hot at all. This is cold, in fact. It's out of the refrigerator. But what it helps is to prevent transference of heat from my hand to the chocolate top, because we don't want that. And I also use a piece of parchment. A, because clean, and B, because it gives you a nice straight line. So what I'll do is kind of create a line here. Then I'm gonna cut a bar of the cookie, and then we're gonna cut it into individual pieces. So it's about, I don't know, what is this, 1.5 inches, Mary? 2 inches? About 2 inches. All right, and what I'm gonna use is a serrated knife. So a bread knife is my preferred tool for this job, just because I like to kind of saw through the chocolate layer at the top. So I'll kind of saw and work my way through the chocolate because I don't want to crack it. So getting through that top layer as nicely as possible to make sure we don't just kind of crack through it. Once we make it through that first part of the chocolate, you can then cut down through the cake and then that bottom layer of chocolate as well. I do this on a cutting board. It gives me a nice flat surface. So then I'll rerun the knife through, make sure we separate the bottom level of chocolate. You can see it's already coming apart. And we did pretty good. So now what we want to do is cut these guys into individual portions. About yay big. And again, sawing through the chocolate.
Half inch maybe.
Yeah, by half inch. And then cutting through the cake and then cutting through. And that is going to be our individual cookies. So this piece goes a little faster. Mare, would you like to? The honors?
Well,
Let's see. Look at the camera. What do we think, Mary? Okay. Voila.
delicious.
There we go. I'll give you the camera back. So there we go. That's rainbow cookies. Any questions? Sorry, we went a little fast, but whew,
We can share pictures and recipes and tips in another format.
yeah, whatever kind of tips you might need. Again, it's sort of like you learn things by trial and error, and sometimes disaster helps to find new and wonderful ways. But I think these methods, for me at least, work. And what I tend to do is, because I'll make a lot of these, I'll actually make a triple batch. So I'll bake 3 green cakes, 3 red cakes, and 3 white cakes. So each batch making one color, just because it's easier and the tool cleanup is a little bit easier. And I'll make 3 full, final cookie sheets of it.
Because they freeze well.
They do freeze well. And you can cut these in smaller sections, wrap them in parchment, and then foil or saran.
And deliver them to your boss.
And deliver them to anyone who wants rainbow cookies. So, do we have any questions out there?
I would just ask how many times or how many years you had to make this before you perfected it.
Here's the thing. So Nancy, right? Because I can't
Yes.
see who's asking, but I know your voice. So the first year I made them, I entered them into the public market contest.
Cookie contest.
Yeah, and I picked up like honorable mention, which I was so happy with because it was my first year making the cookie. And as you can see, it's like multi-step and multi-day. I was like thrilled to pieces to get it that quickly. But yeah, I just followed that recipe that you guys have that Amanda sent out. I just followed it to the T. The things like, here's a couple things. The recipe calls for 4 ounces of chocolate. I use about 5 ounces on each side because I'm not skimping out, and it's easier to work with when you have more chocolate. As you can see, like it sets really fast. So having more chocolate to work with is way better for me. And it's not like an overly thick
It's not
chocolate.
too much chocolate.
It's not super thick. Like it's not like a bar of chocolate. Like it's a good amount of chocolate. So I use about 5 ounces on each side. That was one thing that
So double the chocolate.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Chocolate. So that was one thing that
I bet you could do pretty darn well on your first attempt with this recipe. It might not be the prettiest, but it will taste delicious.
Yes, it will taste very good. I mean, with that much butter, where are we going? It's good.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yes, your first batch of cookies will come out very good. I have faith in you guys.
It looks great. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. This was fun.
Yay, Lee.
Hey, Mary, thank you for doing videotaping. Oh, sorry, there's my finger.
Lee and Mary and Jean and Lucy, thank you all so much for taking time out of your night to show us how to do all this awesomeness.
Hey, this was a good time.
Very welcome.
I love those gumball cookies, Jean.
Yes.
We'll make sure you get some for sure.
All right, and same here. We got rainbows coming your way.
Woo!
All right, guys. Happy holidays and have a good night.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Yeah.